Hi there, this is Dr. Everybody. We're going to take a look at Project 5. And what we're doing is we have some data and we're going to find some averages and plot them. This data comes out of the Red Cedar River. It's the flows. The other instructor is Ali Raza. His wife is an environmental engineer and works with water flows and things like that, which actually happens to be what my wife does too. And so we've got some USGS data, and we're going to see if we can extract some useful information about it. In particular, we want to use lists, and this project could be done without lists, but don't do it that way because lists are extremely powerful and they make your life easier for the rest of the semester. So you want to get comfortable with them, and that's sort of what I want to try and show you this time. So let's take a look at it. So the project is, as it says, we're looking at a file of data, and actually this is the file of data itself, and it has some, so it's got some fields that we don't really care about. It's the last three that we care about: the year, the month. It's 1932, January, and the flow is 215 cubic feet per second, I believe is what the metric is. And so we get it for all of 1932, and then we go and we get it for all of 1933, and so on. And what we want you to do is you're going to take these values and make an average for the year 1932. Okay, and then you're going to take these values and make an average for the year 1933, and so on, all the way through until the year 2015. And in fact, what we want you to do is to create a tuple. So in this case, it would be 1932, and then whatever value the average is, I'm just going to make up a number, 130, and then we want you to do 1933, and the number, again, just making up a number here. And then what we want you to do is to create a list of those. So the list I'll call it L, and it will have those tuples in it. So we'll have 1932 and 130, again that's a made up number, and then 1933 and its value, again a made up number, there's a comma there, and so on, all the way up to 2015 with, again, just sort of a made up number. Okay, and so we're going to create this list, and then we're going to plot it. And we're going to have on one axis will be the years, and so the x's will be a list of the years. So in order to plot this, we'll have x will be 1932 and 1933, and so on all the way up to 2015. And the y's will be a list, again, these made up numbers, 130, 145, etc., all the way up until the value for 2015. And so now we have a list of x, a list of y. They have the exact same, they're the exact same length, so it's the same number of values. And then pretty much what we do is we plot x and y. Now, there's a couple other parameters in there, but that's basically what gets done. So that's what our goal is. And what I want to show you today is how to work with lists. And what I'm actually going to do is, rather than breaking this down into months, I'm actually just going to take all the values and show you how to find an average for all the years. You get to try and figure out how to extract the pieces. So that's what we're doing. Again, we're requiring you to have some functions. Well, there's the open file. Hey, use the one from the previous project. In fact, I'll show you one here. There's reading a file which calls the open file, and then it returns a list of your choosing. Well, I just showed you a way to do that. We give you the draw plot, and now you have a couple of other programs. So this returns the average by year, right? And then this takes every year, and it gives you a tuples in the form of that average for every month. So, and we get to use some extra functions if you wish. So, with that, let me let's take. So we provided the PyLab, and there's my open file from last time. Feel free to use this. And I want to try this thing out, so let's go fp equals open file, and then let's print everything. Just to see if it's working. Okay, so we printed out. Now we can see what the data looks like, which we already looked at it. So how do we go about dealing with data? Now, as we said before, we're interested in the last three values: the year, the month, and the flow. And we want to create a tuple out of those. So how do we go about doing that? Well, first of all, let's make a list out of these. We're dealing with lists, so I'll call it line list. And the line list is simply the line that is split. Now what I like to do is also I like to strip off the carriage returns first and any blank space at the end. So now what I'm going to do is print each of these. So we got the same data that we had before, but now it's in a list. Okay, as you can see the square brackets at the end, I have a list. Again, I'm interested in the last three values of the list, which are, of course, we have the year, we have the month, and then we have the flow. All right, those are the three pieces of data that I'm interested in, and they are in columns 0, 1, 2, 3. So we're interested in column 4, column 5, and column 6. All right, so let's extract those out of there. So first one is a year. So that's my item in my list. That's item 4. My month is item 5. My year is item 6. So we now you can see we have printed out each year, each month, and each flow. Now what I'd like to do is I would like to collect these all into a list. So what I can do is create a tuple out of that if I want. Let's see what that looks like. Notice how I keep testing my code, right? So now I've created a tuple of each of these. So, and the tuple has 3 items in it. But notice my data is still a string. I've still got those quotes in there, right? It'd be nice. Why don't we get rid of those? But again, notice I do this a little bit at a time. Those sure look like floats to me. So let's fix those up. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so we got the month, the year, we got some flow. Now I would like to collect them all. So a common thing that you do with lists, it's actually very similar to what we did with strings, is you start with an empty one and then you append onto it. What do we append? Well, we append my tuple. So this is a common, let's not print the tuples now. And when I'm all done, let's just print my list. So it's important to see the pattern here. We set it equal to empty, and then we append it in my list. Start with an empty, keep append, 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 append. That is a pattern, right? Watch out for that pattern. You're gonna, when we're dealing with lists, we're gonna be doing this all the time. Start with an empty list, keep appending onto it. Very common, so you want to think about that. And so what I have here is I have a list. See the square bracket there at the end? And if I scroll way, way back, so if we scroll way back to the beginning, we see we have another square bracket. And each one of these then is a tuple with the year, the month, the flow. Again, comma there, tuple, year, month, flow. All the way, and notice it started with the square bracket, all the way to the end. And in the end, you see the year 2015, that tuple, December, and its flow, end of the tuple, and then there's the square bracket. That's the end of my list. Okay. So now I've made a list. Okay. Well, what can I do with my list? Well, first of all, I can take all this, and we have to make a function out of it. And rather than printing the data, we want to return it. So I can say data equals read data. And again, I can print it. And let's check, see how we did here. All right, so now I have data. All right? What can I do with it? Well, let's not print it. One thing I can do is I could print it by walking through it. In a loop, maybe that will print a little nicer. Okay, so I'm printing each item, but let's make an average of all the flows. So let's make a list of flows. Notice the pattern. We start with an empty, and we append to my list. And what am I going to append? Well, I'm interested in the last one. The flow. And what was that? It was the item 2 in the list. Okay, and what does my flow list look like? It's all the flows. Okay. Well, if I want to find an average, that is the sum, because I can sum a list. How many items are in the list? Oh, that's the length of the list. So what did I do? Let's review what I have at this point. I went through every line in my file. I started with empty data. I extracted 3 pieces of information, created a tuple, and then I appended. I went through the loop, and I did that for every single one. And then I went through, now that I have all my data, I grabbed the flow out of each one, made a list of the flows, and then it was simply the sum of the flow over the length of the flow is my mean. Now, I did it for all the flows, right? I did it for all flows. You need to do it by month. Okay. And what does it mean to do it by month? Well, let's take a look at the beginning of the data. Let's take a look, say the first 50 items in there. So what you want to do is you would like to collect the data just for the year 32. There's our dividing line right there. And so you can, what you want to do is make a list of those 12 values, right, for the year 1932. So how do you know when you're done with this? Well, there's a couple ways you know. One is, this is nice. It goes up to the number 12. And so when it starts again, then we know that we're in a new year. Or you can notice that you go from 1932 to 1933. Doesn't matter. You can use either one of those. But what you want to do is loop through the data and keep track of the year. And then build a list of flows, starting it with it empty, and then append, right, the particular values, and then find the sum of the flows over the length of the flows, and now make a tuple out of the year and you know, this equals the mean. Right. And now and keep some kind of a master list here. I'll call it L. Append that onto that. So you've got to collect this information into a list. Use that to find the mean. Create a tuple. Append that on there. And now we have a list of years and means for each year. Right. And then after that, you then need to plot it. How do you plot it? Well, we've got the plot. We have a draw plot. I can say something like y equals 30, 40. Just picking some numbers here. And what will my x's be? And then I can say draw plot. X, Y, title, test, X's and Y's. You're going to have to do better than that. But that drew a plot of my values. And so what you need to do in terms of the plots that we have is you need to build a list of y's and build a list of x's. Oh, and by the way, you can, we have this data. List comprehension is nice. Our flows were at the last one, and that makes a list just of the y values. Right. So that's a handy way for you to make a list out of some data that you have, which is there's too much data there even to show, even to print here. It just fills up my screen. But if we look at, say, the first 50 values in there, that's what it looks like. All right, so there you go. You've got, I've actually given you quite a bit here. And at the end here, you can see that once you create the averages, you can then you can plot them. And then just to help you out here, we've got values so you can check to see that your averages are correct for each year. And then we go and we ask you to do enter a month and to check things, right? Oh, it's not an integer, it's out of the range, Oh, there's the 5th month, that's May. Okay, and then what we want you to do is to plot this, so now this is just a different way of looking at the data. So we have all the years, and then we have the data for May. And remember, every item in our original data file is the average flow. So this is going back and grabbing the original data, just doing it by year and doing a plot. So in some respects, this part is easier to do than the first part. And again, we ask you to print them. It gives you something to check against, and then at the end, we'd appreciate it if you filled out the questions about the research. So the output looks long, but that's really just to give you values to work with. Okay, good luck.